Imagine a man who walks alone through the mountains, scribbling ideas into a notebook, wrestling with God, morality, and the very foundations of Western thought. His mustache is as wild as his philosophy. His words are sharp, poetic, and sometimes maddening. This man is Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the most misunderstood and influential philosophers of all time. Born in 1844 in a small town in Prussia, now modern-day Germany, Nietzsche grew up in a devout Lutheran household. His father was a pastor but died when Friedrich was just 5 years old. That loss marked him deeply. As a boy, he was quiet, brilliant, and obsessed with language and music. He went on to study classical philology, the study of ancient languages and texts, and by the age of 24, he was appointed as the youngest ever professor at the University of Basel. But academia couldn't contain him. Illness, eye problems, and a restless mind led him to leave his post. From then on, Nietzsche became a wandering thinker, writing some of the most provocative books in philosophy. But who was he really? Nietzsche wasn't just a philosopher. He was a radical challenger of convention. He questioned everything: religion, morality, truth, even the concept of truth itself. His writing is full of paradoxes and poetry, aphorisms, and bold declarations. Perhaps his most famous line is, "God is dead." But what did he mean? He didn't mean a literal death. Nietzsche was pointing to a cultural shift. In the wake of science, reason, and secularism, the traditional belief in a divine, moral order was crumbling. People no longer lived with the same faith. And Nietzsche feared that without something to replace it, society would drift into nihilism, a belief that life is meaningless. To fight this, he introduced the idea of the Übermensch, or overman. This was not a comic book superhero, but an ideal, a person who creates their own values, who lives authentically and courageously without relying on external authority. For Nietzsche, the Übermensch was someone who transformed suffering into strength and chaos into creation. He also gave us the concept of eternal recurrence. Imagine that your life would repeat itself again and again, forever. Every pain, every joy, every moment, relived eternally. Nietzsche asked, would you say yes to that? Would you embrace life so fully that you would live it over and over? His work was ahead of its time and often misunderstood. He was misappropriated by the Nazis despite the fact that he despised nationalism and anti-Semitism. In fact, much of that distortion came from his sister, who edited and twisted his unpublished writings after he suffered a mental breakdown. Yes, in 1889, at the age of 44, Nietzsche collapsed in the streets of Turin, Italy, reportedly after witnessing a horse being beaten. He embraced the animal and broke down. From that day on, he never recovered. He spent the last 11 years of his life in silence, mentally incapacitated, under the care of his mother and then his sister. Yet his ideas lived on, and they grew. Existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus built upon his work. Psychologists like Carl Jung were influenced by his vision of the self. Even artists, writers, and revolutionaries have drawn from Nietzsche's fire. He asked dangerous questions and didn't shy away from uncomfortable answers. What if morality is just a human invention? What if truth is just a perspective? What if we are meant not to conform, but to become? Nietzsche's writing is not easy. It challenges you. It confronts you. But for those who are willing to grapple with it, his work can open doors into deep reflection and maybe even transformation. So who is Friedrich Nietzsche? A philosopher, yes, but more than that, a challenger of dogma, a lover of art and music, a man who saw both the beauty and horror of existence and urged us to face it with courage. In his words, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And maybe in understanding Nietzsche, we begin to find our own why. Thank you for listening to Explained Under 5 Minutes.